Hello everyone and welcome back to the Odd Machine Factory's Garage series, season number 1. In today's second episode of the season, I will show you the actual drifter body that I have bought to serve as the home for our Jaguar HAV8 engine family that I showed you in the first episode. And as you can see, we are outside. It's -10 and the wind is nicely blowing. And you might wonder what's the sense of standing here. But as I have been test fitting and measuring and comparing a lot of big components, engines, gearboxes, axles and so on, it has been much more practical to do it outside than trying to fit everything into the small garage of mine. So I just put all my engine parts in the garage and then did the needed measurements outside quickly. So of course the idea is to pull the car back to the garage once I have the base parts figured out, the major parts figured out. But as for now it has been much easier to work like this. And you know, there are always excuses. There's too dark, there's rain, or there's some snow and it's cold outside. I don't I don't care about those things. If you want to build a car, you build a car. So that's why we are doing this like this. And to not list any more excuses, let's take a sip out of my coffee mug and then start cleaning out the car to really show it to you. So here it is, a 2005 Subaru Legacy 2.5 liter naturally aspirated beast that I chose as the body for the upcoming drift build. And as you can see, the cleaning of the car from all the snow has turned into an endless battle, but I'll just give you a quick overlook on the car and what things are ongoing with the body. So first of all, why I chose this body is that I really like the looks of it. I have always liked it, and I wanted an estate car which looks good, so I think this is one of those. Then I needed a car which is longitudinally mounted engine from the factory, so when I convert it to rear wheel drive, it's much easier to do it with that setup legally in Finland. Then I wanted the body which is light enough but spacey enough. So I think this is a good combination of weight and space. I can fit in the kids, I can fit their stuff in the back. It has a towing hook, I can pull the trailer with the car, and it's quite practical, but it can be turned into a quite fast machine because it's quite light. Then I really like the axles on these, the structure of the axles on these cars. So these are of course 4-wheel drive from the factory, but the front end is quite easy to convert for the rear wheel drive setup. So it's easy to modify so that you can drive it without the front drive shafts in place. And it's easy to make it turn much more than the factory setup, so that's also a good thing about the front axle. As for the rear axle, the structure is quite simple. You can get good parts for the control arms and so on. You can get coilovers, and then there's quite much room for a diff, drive shaft and CV joints. So you can fit like decent strong driveline components into the rear axle without modifications or big modifications to the axle. So I think that's a good point as well. And then why I ended up with this specific car is that, well, it turned into the market with a broken engine. So you might guess that it was cheap. And actually the body is in a very decent condition compared to the age and the driven kilometers. And then it was quite close, so it was easy to go and check the car and then buy it. So I really like the looks of the car and the decent shape of the body and the color. So those all went to my spec, of course, with the low price as well. And what I have now done to the car, I pulled out the original engine. I'm not saying that Subarus are unreliable. I have also Turbo Forester, which I use, but this one definitely has been a bit unreliable. So there are two big holes on the side of the block, so the conrod came out, and it was lucky the previous owner that the car didn't caught fire, because he was driving it for several kilometers after that happened, and when he was home he noticed that there are big holes on the block. So that engine will be recycled and forgotten, so we won't concentrate on that anymore. Then what I did after pulling out the engine, I also pulled out the driveline, so there's no diff, drive shafts, prop shaft or gearbox underneath the car, as I was already test fitting a new diff and drive shafts to the rear end. And as you can see, I even pulled out one of the hubs so I could measure what kind of a setup I would need to build to fit the new strong driveline components into the rear axle. And as you can see, the structure of the rear axle, it's quite spacious and nice, so we can definitely fit the idea that I have for the driveline back there. I will cover that in more detail in a separate episode of the driveline concept, but I wanted to just to show you that some things are already ongoing on that side as well. Then interior wise, the car is stock. It's been a family car and will be a family car after my work, but we will just first focus on the powertrain and the power source. So we want to get the engine running and the car driving, and then we can concentrate on these other things that are not necessary for the build at this point. And as you can see, the Subaru is funny because it doesn't have any window frames on the doors. So let's see how sturdy that will be on the track, and do we have to build some kind of a roll gauge setup there after the first tests. But for now, I think we'll just throw in some bucket seats and then leave it as stock otherwise, until we have better understanding of how the car drives and behaves. Then on the engine bay side, I have a small surprise for some of you. Some of the followers might know already that from the Instagram or Facebook that I have been testing another concept, or actually two of them, into this body. And my king idea was that I would just swap in the powertrain, the engine, the ECU and everything from the Turbo Scorpio, and just make a quick swap to this body, so I would then have no excuse to drive the Scorpio while I would need to repair the body of that one. So what I did is that I just took out the engine and gearbox and everything from the Scorpio and threw them in this body, and tried to figure out if there would be a way to make this setup work. Of course, everything can be done, but this setup is having so many interference problems with the body, the subframes, the bonnet and everything. So I would need to modify a lot of parts, and then it doesn't really make sense, because it wouldn't then turn out into a cheap and easy quick swap with that engine. So I will put that back into the Scorpio, and we will continue with the HAV8 concept, because that seems a lot more easy to fit there, and I haven't seen this kind of a build anywhere in the world, so I want to do something different for a change. So that's it for today's episode. Like, subscribe, and comment. Ask if you have some questions about the topic or the build. Let me know what you think about the body and engine choices. I bet somebody disagrees fairly strongly about them, but I think it will be a fun build. A bit different, a bit strange, a bit odd, but definitely something that will be fun on the track. So let's not worry about sense at this point of the build. And in the upcoming episodes I will show you the torn down engines. So I already stripped down the 4.0 HAV8 that I showed you in the first episode, and next week I will also tear down the 4.2 liter flooded supercharged engine, so you can see then what the moisture has done to the engines and what parts I can salvage from those two engines. So stay tuned, and I hope to see you in the next one.